Hello all and welcome to episode 66 of the 3-for-1 Sky Fantasy Podcast by fantasyfootballhub.co.uk after a low-scoring weekend for many, but with another full round of Premier League matches starting on Tuesday evening. It is non-stop at the moment. My name is Fergi and I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host Paul McAnulty. Paul McAnulty. I must put that A in, mate. I do apologise. Paul, how was your Sky weekend?
Yeah, it was pretty good, thanks, Fergie. A few of my low-owned players performed really well, so I managed to make some inroads in the top 100.
I saw Gehi as well, an inspired choice for attacking threat. Did the business for you again. two goals in 2 games since you brought him in.
Do you know before I brought him in, I was genuinely looked on who scored to see if he was going up for corners, because I'd never seen him on any match of the day highlights or anything like that from attacking at set pieces and getting points from the wrong areas of his repertoire.
It's luck like that, mate. Honestly, though, which could end up being the difference, in winning it or not. We all need a bit of luck when we win. So hopefully that bodes well for you. I know you commented a few times around this time last year around my running Dream Team, where I think you said I've got the Midas touch in Dream Team, is everything I did, all the players I didn't have did nothing, and all the players I had were scoring these random goals and things. And it seems to be you got a little bit of that maybe at the moment with Gehi, and things like Spurs game being called off yesterday, not having Højbjerg, these little bits and pieces, mate. I think the signs are there for you. I think it's good.
I was very, very close to bringing in Ederson yesterday as well, so I was quite happy after deliberating with you prior to going. I'd written down all my pros and cons, and I like to do it because you'll go back and reaffirm, well, you've already answered your own question by writing it all out. So that was helpful.
It is. So assuming then you might be going for Ramsdale ahead of Ederson, is that your current plan?
Yeah, I will be. Yeah, next weekend. Yep.
And a nice few points off Sarah as well. So absolutely smashing it at Paul. I can see we can see on screen 83rd at the moment with really good team, plenty of transfers in hand. So very, very well played. I had a poor week. It was my first poor week in a while, actually. No Brighton defence. I was contemplating bringing in, doing a double move on the weekend to bring in either Dunk or Webster. I was 0.1 short of doing a direct move from Livermore to Webster, very, very frustratingly, which means I couldn't do that. But yeah, in the end, I was going then to do Antonio to Alonso, and I didn't do it. And it's just from experience of going through a bit of pain when it's kind of sod's law then, because Antonio started. I could see he was starting. Antonio would have maybe got a goal or so. Alonso got a bloody injury or red card. That tends to what happens, with the fantasy gods at times when you play with fire. But as it happened, I think they both scored the same amount of points. So I'm glad I held off, because now I get to see the lineups on Wednesday, see if Alonso's starting, see if Antonio is starting, and make a bit more of an informed decision when I can see all the lineups instead of some. But So I didn't use any transfers, and I'm still unsure on my moves. I've got to be honest, it's really hard because I'm trying to plan out day by day, but the landscape changes, we know, kind of day by day as well. It's so tough. So it's very hard to say what exactly I'm going to do. I was tempted to bring in Norgard yesterday as an example. Livramento just to Norgard to maybe cover off that Brentford thing. And as it happened, I saw after he was on 4 yellows. I think Planet FPL kind of raised that, which is a really good point. But also, I think he went off yesterday with a knock as well. So it's just these little things where holding on to transfers can really help. And and also now we've had the World Club Cup dates confirmed for Chelsea. This could affect our transfer usage going forward. So we'll touch on that a bit. For any new watchers and listeners, you are very, very welcome. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen if you're watching on YouTube, and set the alerts so you don't miss our podcasts or live streams. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content. It would be much appreciated. So today, we will firstly look at the highest owned players and how they performed on the weekend. I see Reece James has shot up in ownership in the top 1K over the weekend. We will update you on the transfers remaining and our thoughts on this before Paul talks us through 5 moves that he feels will be very, very popular throughout December. We will look ahead to the remainder of Gameweek 17, look ahead to Gameweek 18 before updating you on what the confirmed dates for the World Club Cup will mean for Sky Fantasy Football, assuming it goes ahead, because obviously with all the COVID stuff that's going on at the moment, both the African nations and World Club Cup, there has to be an element of risk attached to both of them at the moment. We'll take on some Twitter questions that we haven't already answered before finally take a look at my team update and plans and some mini league stand-ins. So firstly, Paul, just in terms of the ownership of the top 1K, we mentioned it last week. Salah, Cancelo and Gallagher are just absolutely kind of dominating the ownerships, 90% plus. What other kind of observations have you had following this weekend's movement and action?
Yeah, so the first point I was going to make, I had Cancelo captain yesterday on Dan's poll on Frank's FF Stuff site. He was by far and away the most popular captain pick, so I went with him, and I would have even if Kane had the Spurs game had went ahead. But as a Cancelo captainer, I actually didn't mind City conceding.
No, you didn't.
Which sounds crazy, but at 95% ownership, the majority of whom will have captained them, and I mean not owning a second City defender, whether it was Ederson, Walker, Diaz or Laporte, I think you actually benefit, even though you captain them. I still think that you benefit from them conceding the goal overall. So I know a lot of people were in uproar about the consolation 94th minute strike by Lanzini, but I think if you're in the position, similar to me, where you captained Cancelo, but he was your only City defender, I actually think you're better off. Obviously, people have many league rivals who might not have captained them, etc. So I can understand from those positions. But yeah, I thought I'd make that point first, and then a couple interesting players in there. So I know Dan and Leon were having a conversation about what they thought Alonso's ownership would be after yesterday. So what was that, up to 26% he moved to? So a lot of Chilwell owners would have just done the straight move there. I moved in Alonso yesterday as well. So interesting, he's went up that much. Reece James, that you had mentioned there, up to almost 40% now as well. So people still playing into the Chelsea defensive assets. And then two near at the bottom here. So we've got Bernardo Silva, who we mentioned last week on the pod, missed out by passing bonus by one pass. So
I thought he got in the end. He didn't, did he?
They credited him it, then they removed it again.
No way.
So went down to 2 points. Yeah, so unlucky for new owners of Bernardo Silva. I'd mentioned last week, I think I prefer Rodri at just 0.2 more expensive, just for the assurance of the bonus. And then Vardy 15% as well. So I think with Vardy, it might not necessarily be that 15% of the top 1K brought him in, and that those outside the top K who are maybe looking for a differential brought him in as well, and then moved into the top K with that move. So congratulations on those that brought him in and took the punt. I think he's still on that never again list. I'm pretty sure he's cemented in Dan's.
Trent, nearly 30%. So hard to get in, and this is the problem with him. Van Dijk as well. Yeah, Van Dijk. Yeah. He's not on this chart. I don't think in terms of being in the top 20. Oh no, he is. Apologies. He's on 28. So yeah, they're both really high, and they're just smashing it at the moment, aren't they? And obviously Van Dijk got the goal and the clean sheet. I'm not sure if he got passing as well, but those two are doing really, really well. And and you can probably say that obviously Kane's ownership has dipped a lot. I just had a look actually, and he lost 1,000 owners yesterday, which is interesting ahead of obviously matches back to back now, home against Brentford and Norwich, of which he'll likely be the most popular captaincy option. Foden taken out as well of 3,000 teams. He's been a real pain because he played really well against Brighton. He looked so dangerous, and ever since then, this is the fourth game now. Obviously, he didn't play yesterday, but he hasn't done anything in the previous three either. So very, very frustrating for Foden owners. And we constantly talk about bonus magnets, and he's not one of these, is he? Whereas kind of a lot of time you're better off just moving to someone who's going to pick you up your 4 points every week or whatever it is. Diaz's ownership has also gone down in the top 1K to 37%, and Kane's down to under 60. So it's going to be interesting because a lot of these players have got some really good fixtures this week, haven't they? And we may we may see some moves. Antonio's also gone down to 20%, obviously blanked again yesterday. They are home to Brighton midweek. We get to see all the lineups this week, which is good. So yeah, there could be interesting moves this week. And when we're talking about transfers, let's have a look at the average transfers remaining. So big shift from last time out. In the top 5,000 now, the average is 23.8. In the top 1,000, 25.9. Top 100, 24.8. But the top 10 has seen a massive shift in the last week because it was up to over 20, wasn't it? And now it's back down to 16.9. So you can assume that, there's been some kind of shifting round in the population of the top 10 rather than the top 10 using lots of transfers. Any thoughts on that, Paul, in terms of, how it affects your thinking or your game? Or
I don't think it's affected it much. Like we just mentioned, there are a lot of changes in the top 1K ownership. So I think there'll be a lot of transfers happen this weekend. We saw Alonso and Reece James's ownership go up quite significantly. There was movement in Bernardo Silva and Vardy as well. So I can imagine those top 1,000 figures coming down quite significantly as well over the coming weeks.
Okay. So what we're going to do now then, Paul has got 5 moves that he feels are going to be very, very popular throughout December. So Paul, do you want to talk us through your first move?
Yeah. So when I've been picking up these kind of analysis pieces for the pod, I don't want to make it too. I don't want to go far fetched from the element of are they moves that I would definitely consider doing. I stop wanting to come from a differential slant and more. This is something that I think is going to happen. So this is kind of where we're moving to now. So on Monday, the 6th of December, this is a move that I'd considered and I'm likely to do. So Sa's still owned by 20% of the top 1,000, and Aaron Ramsdale's been performing brilliant for Arsenal in terms of points returns in Sky format. So I think that'll be a really popular move for those, especially if they don't have Smith Rowe. Arsenal's fixtures after that game are really good, and Wolves play Chelsea and Man City in 2 of the following 3 games after that as well. Ramsdale covers off that captaincy against Everton from that game. You get the additional game day as well. So I've got a feeling that move is going to be really popular on the 6th of December.
He's only had 1 2-pointer just looking at his last 6 games. Even on games he's conceded, he's still getting save points, isn't he? Which is why he's probably such a good option. He likes to make spectacular saves, as we saw again on the weekend, the one off Shelvey, which he, don't get me wrong, it's a good save, but he made it maybe look a bit better than it was, since it was quite a straight shot, I thought, the one he tipped over the bar. But he's a very good keeper, very good shot stopper. As he showed last season with Sheffield United, he is a good keeper, and it's definitely one. So I've got Mendy, and it's also one I haven't quite made my mind up yet on whether to go for it or not, because it does release 0.8 as well, which for me potentially could be the difference between Webster and Dunk, for example, or something along those lines. So it's one to consider for Mendy owners there as well. Who's next on your list, Paul?
Yeah, so I also think that a different avenue to cover off the Arsenal captaincy could be Smith Rowe. I think Rafinha, fixtures after the next game against Crystal Palace and Brentford turn really, really poor. So Leeds then play Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool in the following 4 games, whereas Arsenal's games are Everton for the captaincy, Southampton, West Ham, Leeds and Norwich. So I think that might be a popular move as well, moving out Rafinha and picking up Smith Rowe. Based on, again, I'm going popular moves based on ownerships of players within the top 1,000. So we can see Rafinha's up at 80%.
Yeah,
I think that'll be a popular move there.
What did you make of Smith Rowe on the weekend? He was quite unlucky actually. He should have had an assist, shouldn't he? Where Aubameyang hit the rebound wide, but it's back-to-back 2-pointers now, and as we kind of mentioned before, he either scores attacking returns or gets nothing.
Yeah. It might be a good move for those looking to upgrade their defenders to like Van Dijk or Trent or something like that, to find that extra million where needed. I don't think he's a fantastic Sky fantasy asset. for those reasons that you mentioned. Doesn't pick up tiers very often at all. It was more, it covers off the captaincy, frees up some budget, and has a lot nicer fixtures than Rafinha in the short term, especially for those that have got a few extra transfers in the bag as well.
Excellent. And who's next then?
So this is one of the most frustrating Sky Fantasy players I've ever owned, in Buemo. So Brentford play Watford on the Friday night of the game week. That's on the 10th of December. And I think a popular move from him will be to Højbjerg. So there's a chance that Spurs get an additional game now before the overhaul, all depending on them getting put out of the League Cup, because the League Cup semi-final round is on the 4th of January, which is would be a free week for teams not playing. So the game could slot into there against Burnley. Burnley are already out, so that could get rearranged in for there. Højbjerg's picking up bonus consistently now, and I think that everybody that owns Buemo will be looking to shift him on, because he's picked up 7 points in his last 5 games, I think it is.
Just a couple of points there. Obviously, that is dependent on Spurs losing to West Ham in the Carabao Cup on the 21st of December. But also, even though that 4th of January is the earliest one, because of, there's no mass rearrangements this year, I wouldn't be surprised personally if they just shoved it out to where it was, less, because less congested. Because obviously in that period, if they do play it on that 4th of January, it means Spurs would have played something like 5 games in 10 days or something ridiculous like that. Obviously with all the Christmas and New Year fixtures, and they'd have the FA Cup the following weekend as well. So it is worth mentioning that. As a Højbjerg owner, I was very disappointed yesterday. I could get the benefit still, in terms of it is rearranged pre-overhaul, but I get the feeling it won't, because there's no massive rush, because at the moment COVID isn't impacting the Premier League like it did last year. There'll be plenty of time to play it when it's less congested. But
yeah, Mbeumo's still owned by 16%, and I think that Mbeumo to anybody as a viable move that weekend. You're getting the fixture gain immediately on it. So even if Spurs didn't get that extra game in before the overhaul, you're still getting a fixture gain and a consistent Sky Fantasy asset, whereas Mbeumo's not that.
I think Mbeumo's owners have been incredibly unlucky up until now, but I personally think they'll be rewarded against Watford. Personally, again, he had some chances yesterday, bottom against Everton, and Watford's defence are a bit all over the shop at the moment, aren't they? So I do think Mbeumo owners will get their rewards if they're patient enough to hold on until then, which is obviously the main reason why they're holding on. So, and what's the next move, Paul? What's the 4th move?
Yeah, so the next 2 moves are both dependent on AFCON kicking off or players leaving for AFCON when we expected them to. So playing the games on Boxing Day and then moving on, so that you can move on players on Monday the 27th for an additional game. So the first one, this has been well covered already, so I don't want to get into too much detail, but Salah to Ronaldo, provided Ronaldo starts in that game on the 27th, I think will be a really popular move. And if that is indeed Salah's last game before going to AFCON. So probably not too much to cover on that one. But on the second point, I think that Mendy to De Gea might be a good / popular move on Monday the 27th too. So if Salah didn't go, then and or Ronaldo didn't start against Newcastle in that game, Man United do have the captaincy requirement for the following 2 rounds of games. Yep. So they're not the single game day on the following round, but Everton Newcastle's other games. So I think ownership will be low across those other teams, so that people will be looking for a Man United captain anyway. If Ronaldo doesn't play all the games in that short period of time, which he's probably unlikely to do, that you've got a backup captain to choose from as well. And then the third game they play Wolves as well. And so if we know that De Gea is playing in those games, if we know that Mendy's off to AFCON, then I think that'll be a popular move to cover off captaincies as well.
I think De Gea's got a bit of, he's quite Ramsdale-esque, isn't he, in terms of he makes lots and lots of saves because you have to, because the defence is so poor. I think he could be a good shout. And just watching the game yesterday, I know it's only one game. We've heard in the last hour or so, actually, that Rangnick has now been confirmed as United manager. It's going to be really interesting over these next couple of games to take a look at United, have a look at the lineups, look at the formation, look at, because obviously Ronaldo is not a presser, and it's obviously well documented everywhere that Rangnick, he plays his whole game around this really, high intensity, speed, pace, and pressing game, obviously, which doesn't suit Ronaldo at all. It's going to be interesting because obviously Bruno is probably, a lot more suited to that style of play. I noticed yesterday he played, in that number 9-ish role for, much of the game. So I think we touched on it last week. It's quite handy, actually, that both Ronaldo and Bruno are exactly the same price, because you can make a decision at the time.
Yeah. The problem with that is that if you're on a 5-3-2 formation, which will be really, really popular, is that you can't make the Salah to Bruno move. So it might be that if Rashford becomes popular again, that he might be the move if Ronaldo's not playing all the games.
It's interesting. It's going to be absolutely carnage over Christmas, and I really think that the managers who can hold their nerve, I think, are going to be the ones rewarded, because it's going to be so easy to burn through, 5 or 6 transfers inside a couple of weeks, isn't it? Because there'll be so many games, there'll be so much rotation, there'll be, injuries, there could be COVID, there'll be AFCON. It's absolutely, it's going to be absolute chaos over those 2 weeks. And I think a lot of, I personally think a lot of Sky managers are going to come out, with a lot of good points or good ranks, but I think we'll see a lot of burnt transfers for that, and because it's so big, because we've done it ourselves a million times, right? In terms of all the best laid plans. I've seen some managers, saying, "Oh, I've made my last transfer now. I'm not making another one until overhaul." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we've all been there. We've all said that. It never ever works out."
Back when Tielemans was essential 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. So, yeah, it's interesting, and I kind of I've touched on it earlier, but I'm almost playing like, while this period is as it is, I'm kind of trying to play almost day by day, because we can afford to see the lineups on a lot of these games, especially the midweek ones. We get to see every single lineup. We can afford to make decisions there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. You mentioned before we went live, Paul, that you potentially have concerns about maybe Alonso starting on Wednesday. I think Reece James, is probably due a rest at some point as well. And what managers don't want to do is be hopping around using transfers and basically transferring out future points. It's going to be a real test of nerve, I think, over this next month. And those who come out with still, I think, a reasonably decent rank, but with transfers in hand, I think be rewarded, because we're going to touch on our next subject now, which was being confirmed this morning, that the Club World Cup, the dates have been confirmed. It's going to be held in the United Arab Emirates from February the 3rd until the 12th. So this is immediately just after so it's kind of during and just after the overhaul. And it does mean that Chelsea will have to reschedule their visit to Brighton and home game versus Arsenal in the Premier League. So the first 2 games back after the second overhaul, Chelsea will not have fixtures, which makes it incredibly interesting, because all of a sudden, if we've talked about the value in Chelsea defenders, haven't we? All season, like Rudiger 9 million, Reece James 8.9, Alonso now 7.9, etc., etc. They're just insane value. Mendy at 7.6. But it's going to be interesting, because especially if Chelsea's fixture after that gets put, for example, on a Sunday, it means that a lot of teams are going to have a 3-0 over those, and this is where the transfers could be so important, because you're not going to be wanting to start off with potentially Rudiger, James and Mendy, and then not get any points for 2 weeks, and obviously who knows also what happens in that period in the Club World Cup. It could be that they could get knocks or injuries. You're not going to really want to start off with maybe more than potentially one in your squad in case they get injured, for example, or COVID, or things like this. So I suppose that's my really first and initial thoughts. Have you had much of a time to think about the impact of this, Paul?
Yeah, I think still my plans to have around about 20 I think that I'd comfortably be able to move off whatever I start with and move on to Chelsea if I go in with that many. It's not going to stop me doing transfers that I really want to do over Christmas, but it would stop me doing any of the what I see as semi-luxury ones.
Kind of like someone to Alonso you did yesterday.
I don't think that's a luxury transfer.
Gahey to Alonso. I'm playing, mate. You've had your points on Gahey. He's done your
work. Yeah, and well, it's to save my enjoyment of football now as well, because I could no longer watch Chelsea on the telly without just praying for them to concede. So
yeah, no, that's it's fair enough. Yeah, I touched on more kind of a post overhaul there in terms of what it means, because it will be massive, right? In terms of if teams have 3 for zeros, if Man City and Liverpool have 3 for zeros, you're not going to want to be putting in 2 or 3 Chelsea defenders, right? When you could have Trent, Van Dijk, Diaz, Cancelo, etc., etc. So I think post overhaul you can probably, I think anyway, wipe out maybe 3 transfers straight away off your plan for what you had.
Or if you're getting Chelsea, if you're getting 15 games, so then if everybody else plays 2 games and say they play the 3rd game and the Chelsea fixture comes on the other game, so you're basically getting 15 Chelsea fixtures for 12 of everybody else's. I think that you'd probably be more inclined to use more than 3 transfers to get in Mendy, Rudiger, the 2 fullbacks, like 4 or 5 transfers. I could see people.
And obviously this absolutely depends as well on when the rearrangements are going to fall for Brighton and Arsenal. Yeah. I think we're probably assuming it's going to be after this. I was looking at Ben Krellin's Twitter this morning. He hadn't updated it prior to this podcast, but the general kind of train of thought is that there will be doubles later on in the season, and so if that's the case, you're probably going to want to, we'll reach a point where, we'll probably have at least 4 defenders and the keeper if Chelsea have got 6 games in 4 weeks, for example.
Chelsea are still in the League Cup as well and play Brentford in the next round, so if they won their semi-final game, provided they beat Brentford and they won their semi-final game, that would get moved out as well. They'd have to rearrange the final, like their game on the weekend of the final, which is,
I think it's later this year.
I thought it was at the end of February. So
it normally is, but I think it's later this year. We'll have to check that.
It is scheduled for the 27th of February.
Oh, okay.
So Chelsea would get their game against Leicester rearranged from that weekend as well.
So that would mean potentially that Chelsea would only have it would be 1 game. It would be the game away to Palace in February, and that would be the only fixture in February. So obviously,
if everything
plays out like that, but you would obviously pile on the other teams, but then you would want a massive shift over onto those defenders. So it's going to be probably 4 or 5 transfers thinking about it, isn't it? Because you're not going to want to hold on to all those players. Away to Palace is not probably, it obviously depends on form at the time. It's not the easiest match either, right? It's not like it's home to Newcastle, for example.
Well, if it wasn't a single game day, I don't imagine anybody. And they would say they were missing. I know there's lots of ifs here because we're saying if they beat Brentford and if they win the semi-final as well. But
it's really interesting. And pre-overhaul, as you say, I do think it's the impact it has on me immediately is thinking actually, because I was wondering whether to be a bit more aggressive with my transfers, but I've just never personally seen a season, and I think it's easy to think at every season that this is the season to be aggressive. I've never finished a season thinking I wish I'd used transfers earlier. I don't think that if anyone really was honest with themselves, there would be very, very few occasions where they actually thought, I wish I'd used more transfers early. I've got all these transfers left. I don't know what to do with them.
Maybe the Man City one last season was maybe the anomaly to that, when everyone piled on Man City in January time. But they had all the extra games, and I guess the same would be said for Chelsea if that happened.
This is it. Interesting stuff, but it's good to know, it's good to know this stuff, even if it is just in the back of our mind, even if it plays a small part in our decision making up until overhaul. But the overhaul special we do, Paul, is going to be very, very interesting because it looks like we won't be picking any Chelsea players, but we will need plans to get them in. Obviously, we'll have the fixtures then, how they fall, so we can plot it a bit more definitely. But yeah, it's going to be incredibly interesting there. Let's take a look specifically now then at the remainder of this game week, which is game week 17, and then let's have a look at next weekend. So tomorrow night, Tuesday the 30th of November, we are recording Monday lunchtime. But Newcastle versus Norwich, Leeds and Palace. I've had a quick look at the polls, and it looks like that Gallagher is probably going to be the most popular captain. What's that wry smile for, Paul?
I'm considering I've got the captaincy on Rafinha just now, and I think I'm going to keep it on Rafinha.
Well, that just goes against the whole way you play Sky. What's going on there?
I know. I don't think there's not that much in the difference between how the votings went, I think. And I worry about Palace defensively. I thought they looked really, really poor at the back of the weekend. I don't know if that's with Anderson missing and Tompkins playing in his place. MacArthur's missing from midfield as well. I thought Milivojevic was really, really poor as well. I fancy Leeds to beat them, and Rafinha's the main attacking threat from Leeds. So, I think I'm going to stick on Rafinha.
If Milivojevic was poor, surely that kind of shouts a bit more that
MacArthur's injured. So
I see. Okay, yeah. Is it Anderson's injured?
Anderson's injured, and MacArthur's injured as well.
It's interesting. I didn't see much from Rafinha. Gotta be honest. I watched the game on the weekend, and it was quite an entertaining game actually. I thought that even for a 0-0, it was very end to end, wasn't it? Brighton really went for it, I thought, and I thought that the kind of boos that Potter got at the end were incredibly unfair. It's not like the team played boring, drab football. They really went for it, and they were very unlucky, I thought, not to win the game. They just couldn't find that killer touch in front of goal, could they? But that's a strange one to boo, that one. I think I'll be going for Gallagher just because I fancy him to score more points than Rafinha personally. Even though Rafinha got tackle bonus as well on the weekend. I'm always scared with Rafinha as well that he could break down any minute as well. But interesting there, Paul. Interesting conversation.
I'm now going to kick myself either way, because one, I don't follow the captaincy poll, or one that I've put the captaincy on someone and then changed it.
Class. On Wednesday, and really importantly, we get to see all the lineups, which is massively important. Wolves and Burnley, West Ham, Brighton, Watford and Chelsea, Southampton, Leicester, all on at 7:30. So we get to see the lineups for those, but we also get to see the lineups before those games start of Everton, Liverpool, and Villa, Man City. So I suppose
I've got an issue. I've got an issue here because I'm going to the Hibs Rangers game on Wednesday, and you get no signal anywhere near Easter Road. So
heck, mate.
if it comes out that Salah doesn't start versus Everton for whatever reason, then I'm going to be frantically calling home and sending login details to my other half.
Class. I've done that before. I did that when I was in the Etihad a couple of seasons ago, and it was when Van Dijk. I don't know if you remember. Van Dijk scored 2 against Watford on a Wednesday.
I was at Easter Road. I was at Easter Road that time as well, I'm sure.
Ah, okay. Well, I was
not two Trent assists and 2 Van Dijk.
It was, and I was at Man City West Ham, and City won 1-0 Aguero penalty, but happening at the same time was Liverpool Watford. I think it was 5-0, and Van Dijk scored 2 goals, and I actually captained Van Dijk that night, but I'm sure I moved it off someone because they weren't starting. So yeah, I did that whole frantic run into the concourse, trying to holding my phone up, trying to get signal, crazy trying to get it. I'm sure I did it on that evening. But yeah, key things here, I suppose. You get to see West Ham and Brighton, so you get to see if Antonio plays. He was rested in Europe last week, so you would guess he plays against Brighton. Leeds did have a few chances actually to score against West Ham, I thought. Against Leeds on the weekend. No, sorry. Leeds had a few chances to score against Brighton on the weekend. So if Antonio does start, I may be tempted just to hold on to him because I do fancy Watford, the way they're playing at the moment, attacking-wise, to score against Chelsea personally. So I'm still contemplating the Antonio to Alonso move. but I think I may leave it another week. You know, obviously if both of them start, if Antonio doesn't start and Alonso does, for example, I'll make that move there. Everton, Liverpool, Villa, and City. Obviously the main captain you'd think would be Salah. Villa against City could be an interesting one because I think, you know, a couple of weeks ago we probably eyed this up and thought, oh, this is going to be a walkover for City. But Villa have since won back-to-back games, kept clean sheets. What are your thoughts on this Wednesday, Paul?
They conceded against Crystal Palace. But
in the 95th minute.
I know it was right at the end. And they have continued to give up possession. So you fancy Man City defenders to pick up passing bonus against them. I'll definitely be captaining Salah, I think, unless I hear otherwise. I'm not starting. Like you say, you get that 15-minute window between 7:15. I'll maybe time my walk to Easter Road Stadium so that I'm like walking down Leith Walk, which is all right for signal, between 15:15 and 30:30. So I've got time for
those of you watching or listening who wonder what it takes to be a top fantasy football manager, these are the kind of sacrifices you have to do. You have to plan your day around lineups.
And then by the time I get to Easter Road, the queue for the pies and the Bovril will be massive. So I'm sacrificing that. Yeah, I'll be captain Salah, but I think this is the first time where I think that you could start making an argument for not captain him. Like Van Dijk or Trent, I think would be good captain opportunities for those that hold as well.
Yeah. If Cancelo starts, would you be tempted by him as captain? Just the way he's played. I mean, even yesterday they conceded and he got booked, and he still got a 6-pointer.
Shooting bonus and passing bonus.
Yeah, he's just an animal, isn't he? He's taken the game to a different level. Like he and Salah this year have just been unbelievable, haven't they?
Yeah.
And then on Thursday, really interesting one. Spurs home to Brentford and United home to Arsenal. Again, you get 15 minutes, though I would guess that, you know, the majority of people will be on Kane due to his ownership in the top 1K at home to Brentford. It's going to be interesting to watch Man United against Arsenal, I think. This will be Rangnick's first game in charge. Arsenal, obviously, you know, have been having some decent results. How do you see that game playing out, Paul? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty tight. I think maybe like 1-0 or 1-1 potentially. I thought Brentford were really lucky against Everton yesterday. If Everton had Richarlison or Calvert-Lewin, I think that they would have won. I know that Richarlison's not been on particularly great form recently, but when Rondon did get in positions, he almost slowed down before he was shooting and stuff. So
he had a few chances, Rondon, didn't he?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think someone that was sharper, regardless of form, would have stuck those away. So I do fancy Spurs to beat Brentford more convincingly than what the scoreline would be in the difference in the scoreline would be in the Man United Arsenal game. Sorry.
Okay, and then looking ahead to the weekend, such a fast turnaround. West Ham and Chelsea, we get to see the lineups for. Again, it's an interesting one because you would, you know, I don't know about you, but I fancy West Ham to maybe score against Chelsea. So it's a tough one in terms of when to bring in these Chelsea players or not. It is a hard one. Go on.
But Chelsea can grind out the defensive. Their defensive stats against everyone's good, though. I think even the top teams. I thought that Leicester would have given them more a game at the 12:30 kickoff a couple of weeks ago, and they just completely nullified them.
Yeah. Okay. Wolves and Liverpool, Southampton, Brighton, Newcastle and Burnley, and then Watford and Man City. Salary to Wolves is probably not as. You know, Wolves have been okay defensively. I think. I don't think it's as straightforward as certainly as some other ones.
Again, I think the opportunity there on Van Dijk or Trent is pretty good as well. You know that they're going to play, so it's not like you need to worry about their team sheets. Whereas if Chelsea or Man City aren't the team sheets that you get to see, you sometimes worry. I guess Rudiger and Diaz are probably the two options people would usually go for, but I think Van Dijk and Trent are alternatives to Salah now. Okay,
and then Sunday the 5th, Spurs v Norwich, United Palace, Leeds and Brentford, Villa and Leicester. So these are two games we mentioned earlier about, you know, those 1,000 managers who have taken out Kane. with these back-to-back captaincy games. Even though Norwich, I think it's fair to say, have improved recently. I think they've only conceded 2 now in the 3 games where Dean Smith has been in charge. So they've definitely improved defensively. It's gonna be interesting to watch Spurs against Brentford. I probably don't think that it makes much of a difference personally in terms of captaincy. Obviously, Leeds, have Brentford, so Rafinha could be an option. But is it Kane all the way for you here?
Yeah, I'll be captaining Kane. Yeah, definitely. It's interesting what people are going to do with Ronaldo now. Like, remember there was like hop-on points that people were considering before. Do you think that that's completely out of the picture now? Even if you see him start against Crystal Palace, is there any interest in making moves now?
Not for me at all, because even if he scores, okay, it's all fine. All fine and good, but it's probably fair to say that we don't know under Rangnick how United are going to line up, right? You would guess Ronaldo would play 80% of games, but that is just a guess. If he doesn't fit in with what Rangnick wants to do, I think Rangnick is quite famous in terms of like Conte a little bit, maybe in terms of just kind of isolating players if they don't do what he says and don't play how he wants to kind of play. So I think Glenroy put it in one of the questions, but he just said, as boring as it sounds, the kind of 3 words we all hate to hear when we're asking for advice is wait and see. But I think it really is on United. I just don't see the point in diving in, because there's so many better options at the moment and such a better use of your transfers that I just think it would be forcing it and taking a punt, which I don't really feel you need to at the moment. You're not going to captain him either, right? With Spurs at home to Norwich, I think the only way the only way you could see a mass move is if Kane, for example, got injured against Brentford or didn't start against Norwich, for example. I think that is the point. You could see this mass move over to Ronaldo, but other than that, I just can't see it personally. And then we get to this bloody Everton Arsenal game, which has been a talking point for the last 3 months. We finally get to it, and we touched on that earlier, didn't we? In terms of Smith Rowe, Ramsdale, nothing really has much changed in terms of that. I think with Everton, I think they did look fairly dangerous yesterday against Leeds. You said Rondon had a couple of chances. They should have Richarlison back. Gray came off the bench as well, so they could maybe fancy him to maybe score against Arsenal. I'm not sure that though Arsenal have improved. I've still got to make a decision, but like I say, there's still there's still 5 game days before this of action to actually go through. So a player
might get injured or something.
This is it, and it makes a decision for you, right? Just for example, even if Ramsdale gets injured, for example, it then makes a decision for you. Same with Smith.
Yeah, this is why I'd consider, because when I've got the Sata Ramsdale move, I can essentially make that in 2 places. I could do it after Wolves play Burnley on Wednesday, and then I could have moved them onto Ramsdale on the Thursday night against Man United.
All that,
because Wolves play Liverpool on Saturday. But I was just for Ramsdale versus Man United and Sa versus
Liverpool.
Liverpool, for the difference of what that gets to get that 100% guarantee that my captain's going to start on Monday the 6th. I think I'll just I just leave it and take the extra information that I get.
Yeah, I think I definitely we were messaged on the weekend, weren't we? I've definitely learned off you over the last year or two. Just information is far more important long term than short term points. And we can use the Livramento example, right? Because I took on Livramento, and I wasn't laughing at you, but you were a bit disappointed because you didn't get Livramento's points, but the points that you made instead by doing a different move have actually got you in profit over that move, haven't they? In terms of Gehi, just as an example. So
yeah, so Livramento got 9 doubled, 18 plus 1 minus 1, so 18 net, and I waited and made the Gehi move when Azpilicueta didn't start against Leicester. And he's on 20 from the 2 games.
Yeah, and that's the thing in terms of the information. Even if Azpilicueta had have started, you would have maybe even got Azpilicueta's points, which would have been decent as well, wouldn't it? So yeah, that little bit more information is so important over short-term points. And while it may hurt in the meantime, you see yourself drop a little bit in rank. You've got to trust the process in terms of that, especially this time of year, because I say it'd be very easy to use. Probably, this month now, I can see people using between 5 and 10 transfers in this period at times, if there are injuries and things like that, because it's such a nightmare, isn't it? Okay, let's move on then to some questions that we have had in. Firstly, one off FPL Hambone. Do you lads think the Brentford keeper is a good option? Downgrading from Mendy seems crazy, but his value is appealing. Not for me, Paul. Any interest in the Brentford keeper?
If I had Mendy, I wouldn't be. I can see some merit in making the Ramsdale move, but I definitely wouldn't be moving him on to anybody else at present.
Paul at Sky Player in FPL kind of answered this maybe, but has the 3-man forward line strategy for December now been scrapped, with most advocates for the idea seemingly deviating away from it the nearer it's getting? The argument for the value being in defence has been there most of the season, so why move away from this plan now? Paul?
Well, I think that's one reason, and now the question mark over whether Ronaldo plays all the games, I think adds even more reason to people not wanting to go down that route. And
still, and we say this every week, we still really haven't seen anything from Kane or Ronaldo still to suggest that they're even going to score heavily or even score any goals at the moment, have we? Still, it's not like they're smashing it, and it's just that structurally the team doesn't fit. Even Diaz yesterday, playing a hard game against West Ham, got tier 2 passing, conceded late on, still got 5 points. Whereas Kane would need to get an assist just to match that. It's just I just don't.
If you look at Aubameyang against at home to the worst defence in the league, and gets a 1-pointer, it's like these premiums just aren't consistently smashing it.
They're not. At FPL Big Dave, does Alonso keep his place after a pretty underwhelming game back and being subbed early? As we mentioned earlier, we do get to see the lineups for this. If Alonso wasn't starting, Paul, on Wednesday, would you have any urge to make a move on, or would you just kind of suck it up and wait till Saturday?
I'd suck it up. If he didn't start if he didn't start both games, I'd be concerned, and I'd potentially look to move him on.
So it's very interesting.
But if he started one and didn't start the other, regardless of which way it was about, unless he starts against Watford and has a really, really poor game. But I don't know that we know any more information about Alonso having started against Man United than we didn't already know. So yeah, we know he's not particularly great in possession and playing possession football, but Tuchel knows that, and he started 7 or 8 games in a row at the start of the season, having already known that. I'm not sure that changes anything. I think with him coming off early, it might just be that he's not played 90 minutes in a considerable amount of time, and therefore he's getting a bit of a rest, and then he'll start against Watford. I don't know that it changes my mind any more than what it had done already.
I think my mind has changed maybe 10%. Because I was all set on getting him in yesterday, getting him in for FPL for a hit, and I didn't on the weekend, and I was considering doing it for a hit this week. He was on corners on both sides, I think, which is absolutely massive. It wasn't his fault for the goal either, which is fair enough. It was obviously completely Jorginho's fault. But what interested me is that they moved Reece James over to left back, which I've certainly never seen before. And you could ask, you could think that maybe was that a bit of a test to see how he did there for future games, in terms of playing him at left back, maybe Aspie back at right back, maybe Hudson-Odoi potentially there, or Pulisic, whoever it is. I thought that was the only thing which kind of made me raise an eyebrow. And the thing with having Reece James over, on that side as well, is he cut in a couple of times, obviously, because he's right-footed primarily, and put in some really good crosses from that side as well. So that was the only thing I potentially learned from it, is that, why would he put in there? That was the thing which interested me a little bit, I suppose.
I don't know that we need an answer to that specifically, because if we were moving him on for someone on Tuesday, who would you move him on for? Yeah, he's done well recently. I know that I just took him out, but I wouldn't be desperate to bring in a defender away to Leeds, knowing that they're unlikely to pick up passing bonus or
on Wednesday.
anything.
It would be on Wednesday.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry, no, but knowing, even if you knew now that Alonso wasn't playing.
Oh no, of course, yeah.
That you could then make a choice because you see the Chelsea team sheet on Wednesday if you really want to move him on. But
I'm hoping he's really good value, obviously, because I think. I hope he plays because he obviously looks brilliant value. And I really hope he does. Got a plan to bring him in, but I am wondering whether they can wait a week or two. A game or two, just based on the fixtures and how they fall. But knowing my luck, when I do that, he'll get and smash in a bloody 15-pointer. But we'll see. Hopefully for you, yeah. Chris Hermitage asks, do you prefer Benrahma to Alonso to give me 5 at the back, or go to Bernardo Silva for 4-4-2? Hindsight should have moved off him today to gain a fixture. So Alonso or Silva? Tough one there. I fancy both these players. I know you mentioned last week, Paul, that you're maybe not a biggest fan of Bernardo for Sky just based on prior experience, but he seems to be starting every single game. And as you say, it was one pass off yesterday. He normally smashes it against most teams. He scored yesterday. He was slightly offside. But he got the goal in the 1-on-1 as well. I think he's looking a really good pick.
Yes. If money's tight, to make it 8.5 and not 8.7, because I still prefer Rodri to Silva for that price bracket. Do I prefer Alonso or Bernardo Silva? I think if the fears are alleviated and he does start and plays well against Watford, Alonso that is, then I prefer Alonso.
Okay. Nichols asks, do you think the appointment of Rangnick at United make any players more or less appealing? We kind of have touched on this, I think. As boring as it sounds, probably a bit of a wait and see. It potentially makes Ronaldo, to me anyway, less appealing, but we do get to see a couple of games. We get to see him against Arsenal, get to see him against Palace first, before really having to think about where they want to bring him in or not. And that's just purely because Kane is by far the better captaincy option on those days. Anything else to add there, Paul? Anything on tackles? Anything like that? I know Fred was quite popular a couple of seasons ago, wasn't he? You'd think, if they do this high intensity press, that someone like Fred, as an example.
Was he?
Well, he was. I'm not saying with you, but he did get a fair few owners because he was consistently getting tackle bonus and passing bonus. And
I don't know that I've ever that we've ever talked about him on the pod. I could be wrong.
We have.
Are you sure?
A couple of seasons ago, he was. He hit a point in the season where he was getting reasonably reliable for tackle and passing bonus. Sure, we have, honestly, yeah.
Okay, my answer's no to the question, though.
Yeah, so I think maybe De Gea, as we mentioned, if he can tighten up, potentially Ronaldo, potentially Bruno, I don't know, but at the moment, I personally think that. Because those captaincy days for United come quite thick and fast at the end of the month and the start of January, I personally can't see Ronaldo playing every one of those games, which is why I'm kind of thinking, myself, more Bruno or De Gea.
Imagine, as I say, imagine at the pre-season pod, right, you knew the fixture run, and then you have a look at, what is it? Like it's away to Newcastle on the Monday, single game day. Then on the Thursday, double game day, but Everton Newcastle's playing. Fair enough. Like Calvert-Lewin might have been touted at the start of the season for that game, but you've got Man United at home to Burnley, and then the following Monday you've got Man United at home to Wolves on a single game day, and we're not screaming out like, Bruno would be essential.
Mental, isn't it? So, mental. But this is why I think it's interesting to see like what happens over these next two. Because if Bruno, for example, you don't know what's happened behind the scenes yesterday, right? Carrick may have been on the phone to Rangnick, which I suppose is perfectly reasonable assumption to make. And Rangnick has said bench Ronaldo. he may have done that because he doesn't fit the system, and and Rangnick may have wanted them to get a kind of another game under their belts, played in that sort of system, and it's probably fair to say that it clearly worked, right? Because they nearly won the game. If only Rudiger popped that one in at the death. But there we are.
It was that shot hit the bar in the first half, like the hair tipped on the bar in the first half.
I've got Rudiger in basically every team in every format on fantasy. It would have been so amazing to do that. Anyway, Brookie asks, Mbomo keep for Watford, then dump for who? I'm thinking Rice. Or I think Paul's already mentioned moving on to Højbjerg. I'm looking at Rice as well. Actually, West Ham's fixtures improved considerably midway through the month.
Like, honestly, anybody
except Mbomo. But I think I think Rice nearly scored yesterday, didn't he? I think he pulled a good save out of Ederson. He is playing a lot more, a lot more attacking than he was last season. So I think Rice is a good option moving forward. He's definitely one I've got my eye on. 7.4 as well. He's far cheaper than a lot of the other players we toss around that area.
Jorginho could be a good option.
He could indeed. Gordon says he's going to Webster, which it's hard to argue with that if Webster keeps his place.
If you weren't locked on 5-3-2, I would definitely. I think Webster keeps his place. I think he's brilliant.
You get to see him away to West Ham on Wednesday as well if he keeps his place again, don't we?
So. Yeah, I just don't see why. Like, they kept a clean sheet at the weekend. Yeah. They played well. They didn't give away much. Yeah.
Hornet, my usual dilemma with Christensen. If he doesn't start against Watford, would you look to go back to Antonio? This is really interesting because I'm thinking of getting rid of Antonio, but. Yeah, Christensen's a tough one, isn't he? He hasn't started now. The last two, I don't think. And Chalobah seems to be getting. Well, I think Chalobah started the last three now in all competitions. But it's so hard with Chelsea and City previously because they tend to win cycles, don't they? But I've got to be honest. If I had him, I got rid last week. But if I had him, I'd be moving on.
What about Dunk? I don't know. I don't know who Hornet owns, so
yeah,
they might already own him. But Dunk could be a good shout.
Dunk, Webster, Rice, Højbjerg. They're all kind of similar sort of price. And Mbomo maybe. I don't know. And Hornet also asks if the AFCON is scrapped, do you revisit the three heavy hitters again? I'm just personally not. I'm personally just playing the game almost day by day at the moment, I think. Paul, would you have any interest in the heavy hitters now? Or
you'd have to tell me that Ronaldo was going to play every game for me to change my plans to get three premiums back up front. And even then, I'm not convinced I would definitely do it.
Ultra close. Can Callum Wilson cover Ronaldo? So the next two are obviously really nice fixtures.
You're the Wilson expert, Fergi. You should be able to answer this one.
Yeah, I do quite like Wilson, but they're just not looking great. The next two are really nice. Home to Norwich, home to Burnley. If you were going to do it, I'd do it this Tuesday and maybe even stick the captaincy on him against Norwich potentially, just as a bit of a punt. That's if you are going to do it. But I don't think you need to personally, unless you're really, really chasing and you really want to, unless you're way behind where you want to be. I mean, am I way behind? I'm talking 150 points. Even if you're 100 points behind at the moment, I still think you can get it back by playing sensibly.
The problem isn't the fact that could Wilson cover Ronaldo in that single game day. In my opinion, it's the fact that Man United have two following captaincy days that.
Yeah, they do.
Therefore, one transfer to get a Man United player in for 3 games is going to be the more optimal move, I think.
Amra Batman asks thoughts on De Gea as an option up to overhauls. We've mentioned him. FF Louis says, when do you think the Spurs game will be played? So we know that the first available game would be round about midweek of kind of the 4th or 5th of January. But I personally don't think they will squeeze it in there. This is just a hunch more than anything. I think it'll be played much later on in the season because there's no rush to get it played. Paul, have you got any thoughts on maybe when it'll be played?
Nah, similar.
Okay. I'm just going to show my team quickly. So I've got it now on screen for those on YouTube. I'll read it out quickly for YouTube watchers. So I've got Mendy in goal, Rudiger, Diaz, Cancelo, and Livramento still. I was 0.1 after Livramento to Webster. So frustrating.
I genuinely forgot you had Diaz, and I'm sitting here at the start of this pod going, "Oh, it was all right."
Yeah.
Man City conceding in the 94th minute.
I know, mate. Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. Rafinha, Gallagher, Højbjerg, Salah, Antonio, and Kane. So feeling a little bit hard done by with obviously bringing in Højbjerg last week. That late clean sheet for Diaz as well, and being 0.1 short of Livramento to Webster. All of those things combined probably cost me a lot of points. But there were periods last year. This is what I learned off Dream Team last year. There were points last year in Dream Team where I thought I was just being so incredibly unlucky. There was a time in Dream Team where I had 9 Man City players going into Man City Everton Monday night game, and Everton were all over the shop. Man City were flying, and the game was called off in the afternoon for COVID. I just remember that, Paul. But at that point, I was like, my luck's cursed. It's all going against me. But as it plays out, as it all pans out, you just have to kind of, just say, well, you can't do anything about it. Just kind of reassess, keep on playing sensibly, and generally that's the kind of play in my experience which kind of, lead you to a decent finish rather than kind of knee-jerky. And as over 1,000 managers did yesterday, taking out Kane, which is an interesting one. Short-term plans, I really don't know. I think that Antonio to Alonso is potentially a move I'm thinking of, but only if Antonio doesn't start. I personally think that Watford are likely to score. I personally think against Chelsea midweek, they're playing really well, that front three. I don't know if Sal will be back or not, but Dennis and King are playing really well. Watford are just attacking. They're scoring lots of goals. I think they scored 6 in the last 2 games. So if Antonio doesn't start, I could move on to Alonso, but otherwise I may just leave it again. Leave it onto Saturday. I'm captaining Gallagher, I'm captaining Kane, and captaining Salah at the moment on the Wednesday night. But yeah, I may just kind of play it out, and then I've got thoughts on maybe Mendy to Ramsdale, maybe Livramento to Webster, maybe Rafinha down to Rice. I was thinking of Norgard yesterday. I didn't do that, and I'm glad I didn't do that after. I was thinking of Antonio to Alonso yesterday, which I didn't do. I'm quite glad I didn't do it again, just because we get this this extra bit of information on Wednesday. So yeah, I'm just playing it day by day. It's really hard to kind of make a plan at the moment because things change on a daily basis. But yep, that's my team at the moment, ranked 4-3. I think my rank's actually gone down now to 4-6-7, because they added some Spurs points on yesterday and they took them off, so I lost a few places. But yeah, that's my team at the moment. On the Fantasy Football Hub £500 league, 10th place Adam Billany, 9th place Gareth Solomon, 8th place Mark Hawes, 7th place Daniel Kerwin, who rose 14 places, so he has shot up into the top 10. Very, very well played, Daniel. 6th place Billy Fraser. 5th Joseph Finley Badu. We answered a question from earlier, actually, shot up 18 places, so Joseph had a fantastic day yesterday. 4th place Rob Watson-Lang. 3rd Liam Stevens. 2nd LC Bishop, and still first, 15 points clear in this league, the Ramos Vamos team by John Kerr. Very, very well played, John, and well played to everyone in that top 10. And then the Four Nations League, as you can see, Paul, my Dragon's backside has kind of moved over a little bit now. You can just see the tip of his tail, because your very well thought out and well planned Gahey goal points have taken you, swooped you away from me a bit in this league. But just to confirm, Paul's second team is 10th, Liam's second team is 9th, Dan's second team is 8th, Ian's second team is 7th, and then Liam, Dan and Ian's first team have all started to rise. They've all started to rise up the ranks. So Liam's team has gone up now. It's on 1130. Ian's team has gone up to 1135. Dan's team has gone up to 1150. My two teams then, 1179 and 1167. I did have a poor week this week, which I'm disappointed about. But Paul has taken a 50-point lead. So you've gained 35 points on me, Paul, in the last 2 weeks. 20 something of those off Gehi. Unbelievable. But yeah, Paul is 83rd overall, playing very well. In all fairness, lots of transfers in hand. So yeah, the Dragon has just moved over slightly. I'm hoping after this week, maybe when Antonio bangs a hat-trick in against Brighton, that I'll be able to climb back a little bit. But we will see.
It'll be interesting, my Dunk versus your Antonio.
It will be. You're right. Yeah, hoping Dunk sides down Antonio in the box to give Dunk a red, and Antonio then takes the penalty. I can't see it happening, but you never know.
Submark, no ball on to take it.
Yeah, that's right. So that is it for us for this week. We hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much as usual for all your questions, and thank you so much for watching this video or listening on the podcast. We really appreciate, and your continued support is always appreciated as usual. Thank you so much, Paul, for all your analysis, stats, thoughts, and everything else. Where can people find you?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty1, MCANULTY.
My Twitter handle is at FFH_Fergi. So this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub, Sky and TFF YouTube channel, and also available on all major podcast platforms. If you liked what you watched, please press the like button. And remember to subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast versions and leave some comments. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions at any time. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for fantasy football, all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more. We will be back next week looking ahead to game week 18, which again is another bumper week. That will be the day. So that evening, Paul, will be Everton versus Arsenal. So we'll be talking yet again of who are the best options for hopefully it will be for the last time ever, hopefully. But game week 18 is going to be another bumper game week with 2 sets of Premier League matches again inside a week, which we will be assessing. Have a great Sky Fantasy week. Stay safe and good night all.